Shaw, and we're so lucky to have our guests um, here today to speak to us about how U.S. is dealing with immigration policy. Welcome our panel, uh, Margaret Carlson, government official, Craig Johnson, blue collar worker, Steve Peterson, CEO of Zoom Onboarding Company, and also one of the only companies in the U.S. that has workers in the world scholarship for immigrants, and also the CFO Carlos, who is also an immigrant from Vietnam. In recent years, we found many polarized views between the people in the United States. Issues such as immigration draw debates on the actions the U.S. should take, and on both refugees at the U.S.-Mexican border and coming from combat in the Middle East. We know how the president stands, but we want to look at how our country stands with the current immigration policy. We are here today to look at the ways immigrants are changing our country. How do we handle large amounts of refugees? How do we deal with illegal immigrants and DACA? And how should an immigration reform be handled? Today we'll discuss these questions and the ways that immigration is affecting our country. With the population of the migrant caravan growing to estimates of around 10,000 people, would you find President Trump's actions sending 2,100 troops to the U.S.-Mexican border to be acceptable?
I believe that Trump's actions leading up to the arrival of the caravan have been very aggressive. If they're coming seeking legal immigration or sanctuary, I believe we should allow them to. I believe that they can help improve the economy by filling in a multitude of jobs that are currently left as open positions. As a business owner, I encourage the caravan to come in legally. A large majority of the caravan are from various different countries in Central America that are fleeing due to poor education systems as well as poverty. If they enter in here illegally, there's not much I can do as an employer. If they cannot provide the proper paperwork for hiring, whether they are legal or not, I cannot hire them.
Would you like to speak on this, Margaret?
Yes. There's a very large mass of people moving towards our country is quite concerning. Maybe not in the way we think. I see it as a large group of people who are in need. My office is working to allow this group of people into the U.S. legally. However, it's quite a long process. We have to make sure all the paperwork is in order, and as well as all of the checks are clear for them all. We are attempting to keep our country safe and in a conducive environment, not only for the people who are already living here, but for the people who will be living here in the future. So I myself see the troops as unnecessary, but I understand any unease that families around the border may be feeling at this moment.
So, Margaret, in countries such as Venezuela, Syria, and South Sudan, we are seeing major economic instability. We see shortages of food supplies, fighting poverty, and corruption. What do you believe we should do to help those who are struggling in their home countries?
My office is working to get as many people who are in bad situations in their home countries out of there and into the U.S. We work tirelessly to get them through the process as fast as possible. However, there's a lot that goes into it, such as background checks and a lot of paperwork. Currently, the U.S. offers $49 billion to foreign aid, but about 33% of that goes to security and military assurances, and 42% go to long-term economic stability and healthcare across other countries, leaving only about 1.2% for the other help that the countries may be needing.
I believe that there are various programs out there already that are trying to help people in their countries, such as the Red Cross Foundation, Doctors Without Borders, and Engineers Without Borders. of these programs are funded by donations from wealthy individuals and are kind of at the mercy of that. So I personally believe that there should be much more funding from the government.
Thank you. We see Trump criticizing DACA often. What do you guys think? Should the children of illegal immigrants become a U.S. citizen at birth?
Yes, because according to the 14th Amendment, we see here, anybody born or naturalized in the United States are considered as U.S. citizens in the states. So regarding whether the parents are illegal or not, I don't see why kids born from birth would be unacceptable and counted as illegal immigrants, whereas the parents are illegal immigrants. So if anybody should be kicked out, it should be the parents, not the kids.
Carlos brings up an important point. The children of those illegal immigrants, they have done nothing wrong, but at the same point, it is unfair for the U.S. to strip the child's parents away from them and send back to their original country. Oftentimes, these children are left to the adoption system, which in short term is great. It offers them basic needs such as food, water, and a shelter above their head, but in the long term, a lot of these foster homes aren't able to give the children the individual attention that they need to thrive.
This is a topic that's very difficult to deal with in my office. While most have other opinions, I believe that we need to send these children back. Not because of any transgression that they've had against their country, but because we simply cannot keep the children here without their parents. Why not just let them stay? The parents are here illegally and cannot be allowed to stay because they are breaking our laws. And no matter how minor it may seem, we might as well throw the laws out the window if we continue to let them break them.
Now, we have different sides on this panel, and I'd like to know more about each of your views. Why do we want or not want immigrants in the U.S.?
I believe that that immigrants are hard workers and allows people who are unhappy in their current situation some sort of sanctuary into the U.S. I believe that they offer many different points of views, and that can lead to innovation. For example, Craig here, he was just on my production team, and he came up with some great ideas as to how we can innovate the longboard industry. So now he's my lead in the innovation team as well as my CFO.
I believe that immigration is a good thing. However, I think the U.S. needs to do a major overhaul in their current immigration system. I think the borders are dangerously open right now. I think most immigrants, whether legal or illegal, come over, most of them with good intentions. However, there are some that want to come over and obstruct our laws and cause terror. And I think the mass influx of illegal immigrants with good intentions is distracting law enforcement from the real criminals trying to come over the border.
Immigration is bringing people who need to get away from situations in their own country and improving our economy here in the U.S. Legal immigration is dramatically changing this, and this help we're creating for these people. It takes jobs from those who are here legally and is giving it to people who are not. Thus making the chances of those coming to the U.S. much more difficult, as they will not have the means to stay in a state of well-being. My office gets immigrants settled into their homes and finds them jobs. However, this has gotten more difficult over the years because a lot of companies are hiring immigrants who are already here, whether they are here legally or illegally.
There are a lot of pros and cons when you hear the term immigration. So what comes to mind when you hear the word immigration? Probably good, bad, something. Oh. Anyway, after the incident of 9/11, we immediately target immigrants as bad people or like terrorists, right? A common argument that's also brought up to us is that we immigrants would also take jobs from American-born civilians or citizens, but that's not the case. From my standpoint, I believe that immigration is good because it brings innovation to the United States. Thereof, as we we try to come to the United States for a better life for our kids and our families, we also bring new ideas and new inventions for the United States. Yeah.
So, Craig and Carlos, how would you improve the immigration restrictions?
I would improve the current visa system. More than half of the current illegal immigrants living in America right now came into the country legally with a work visa, but then overstayed their expiration on the work visa. And so if we put more money and manpower into tracking expired work visas, we would put a stop to a lot of the illegal immigrants in America. And like an example of this would be the 9/11 bombings. Those were people that came over legally and overstayed their work visas. So had we invested in tracking down these expired visas, we could stop future events from transpiring. And another thing we could do would be is mandate a thing called E-Verify, which forces employers to hold employees accountable for like being hired. It would force employers accountable for hiring illegal immigrants. So basically, it mandates that when an employee wants to work somewhere, they have to get their I-9 checked with their employer, and the employer will compare it with the U.S. Department of Homeland Security and the Social Security Administration to verify if they're allowed to work in America. And that would stop a lot of illegal immigrants from getting jobs in America if they mandated that for all employers, and it would make people less likely to try to come to America legally, encourage them to come just like legal immigrants.
Why change the current visa system? I think it's just doing just fine. Like, I don't see anything wrong about it. I gotta say that it was very unexpected that 9/11 did happen, and it was devastating for like all of us on that day. But for those illegal immigrants living on the United States before the attack, what are we gonna do with them? Are they considered like bad people or what? And also, if Americans are so terrified of undocumented immigrants, why are we so quick to like bring them here in the United States? As we give them like security guards to our gates, to like cut our lawns, do this and that, do some like the basic stuff. But let them watch our kids while we go out and party. I understand you want to prevent these like future tragic events, but what if I said not all illegal immigrants are bad, but they could bring some benefits to the United States?
Thank you, that's an interesting position. Margaret, what is your stand as a government worker?
I agree with Craig. We should have more checks and restrictions at borders. We should also have a medical check looking at past injuries and ailments. We'll know if they have been in fights or any other illnesses that they may have to be assessed.
Steve, how do you plan on limiting the restrictions on immigration?
I think one of the hardest things currently, just based on some of my workers' feedback, is the civics test. In some recent research, it said that 45% out of 1,000 participants of U.S. citizens were unable to pass the civics test. So that kind of brings up the question of if people that live here and have lived here their entire life, if they cannot pass the civics test, then why should we have the expectations on the immigrants, those with poor education systems and poverty? How do they have the resources to access the knowledge to pass the civics test? I personally believe that we should allow them visas, and then we could have classes that help them pass the civics test.
So, what should we do with illegal immigrants already in the U.S.?
I don't think we should grant them amnesty. I think that'd just be rewarding them for doing something illegal, and it could possibly encourage other immigrants to try to do the same thing if they want the same result. I think if they do implement the E-Verify system I talked about earlier, it would force illegal immigrants that are currently living in America to either seek to become legal, or they would just be forced to go back to their home country, and it would lessen, obviously, people trying to come in here illegally.
We're telling people that it is all right that they broke our laws. We are conducing a behavior that should not be and have no control over our own population. We estimate that there is about 323 million people in the U.S., and about 12 million illegal immigrants. That's just an estimation. There could very well be much more. We are having a steady increase of at least 1 million illegal immigrants a year, and soon we'll be bursting at the seams and we have to start deportations now, of people who are here illegally. So we can get more control over who is here and who should not.
Margaret, while you bring up an important point, how do we identify who is here illegally and who is here legally? Obviously, we could send out police at every door, but how effective would that be? And Craig, you brought up the proposal of this e-verify system. I believe it sounds like a great idea, but that would be putting the responsibility on the employers, and depending on the size of the company, large corporations, I'm sure they'd have no problem coming up with the resources to help fund this, but such as smaller businesses, I don't think they would be able to come up with the funds to implement this e-verify system.
Well, thank you for coming, Carlos, Steve, Margaret, Craig. That's our time on Hot Topics today in the USA. Thank you for watching. We hope we gave you a better understanding of how immigration is affecting the US, and have a good night.